Welcome to Sense of Style. I'm Stuart. 8 fragrances that feel like a religious experience. And if you've been collecting for any length of time, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. If you try on the right fragrance at the right time, it can feel so uplifting. It can lift your spirits. It can feel like a religious experience, like you've been to church or maybe you've been praying. I am not a religious person. However, I was when I was younger, so I know what it's like. And fragrance does weird things to our brain. It can be super uplifting. The weird thing, though, is it doesn't always have to be the greatest fragrance of all time. I tried Nautica Voyage once in August, and I never liked it. And it was a super hot, humid day, and I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, this is way better than I thought. Then I came back to Earth later on. But yeah, it was just the right place and the right time for Nautica Voyage, although today I am talking about specific fragrances that do that religious experience thing for me on a much more consistent basis. These fragrances are all really good, and they make me feel divine. Fragrance number 1, Dior Homme Parfum 2020, and this is very similar to the 2014 version, and it is terrible that I now have to say the year of the fragrance release for this one because of the release of the new 2025 version, and based on every review I have seen, they are quite different. Now, as good as this one is, and just about every single reviewer I saw said that this was either their favorite fragrance of all time or in their top 2 or 3, just like me. But the new fragrance seems to be much more mass appealing, and I don't know, it just, the quality doesn't quite seem to be there. It may end up being successful. It is early. One thing I will say about the new Parfum, though, it is certainly going to be more versatile than this, because even though this is absolutely brilliant, this is a very strong, very dark, leathery fragrance, and it really isn't super versatile. So the colder the weather, the better this smells. I think I'd wear this 3 seasons of the year, not in summer ideally, but any kind of cool weather, this thing is fantastic, and the colder, the better. So it's got a lot of leather. It's a really nice, expensive, smooth leather. There's also oud in this as well, another dark note. There's a creamy ambrette. It does have some iris, which is kind of a neutral note. It's got a lot of iris, but the other 3 notes take it in more of a dark direction, making it better for really cool weather. It's super strong as well. You're talking, at least 12 hours for me. Anyway, this is like one of the greatest fragrances of all time. Fragrance number 2, this is Ombre Nomade by Louis Vuitton. And I've had this 2 milliliter sample for over 3 years. And the weird thing is, I've never had a huge desire to get a bottle of this. Now, obviously, price is a big factor because this is one of the most expensive fragrances you can buy. But I've noticed, I haven't even wanted to get a clone of this, and there are clones out there. And I think that over time, especially as a collector, I've learned this couple of different types of fragrances. There's fragrances that you want to wear that'll get you compliments and get you noticed. And then there are fragrances where you're sufficient with just smelling them. So fragrances you want to smell and fragrances you want to wear. This is a fragrance I want to smell because I put one spray on my hand. I hold it up to my nose and it lasts for, 12 hours at least. And I'm good. I get the religious experience just by smelling my hand, and I can do that anytime throughout the day. So it is on the dark side, though. It's oud, rose, and saffron, fairly well balanced, but the incense is a big factor in this. It takes it in a darker, stronger direction. And when you've got darker fragrances, things like Tuscan leather and this, it appears that they're using raspberry to break things up. Now, this is a drier raspberry, slightly less fruity raspberry than you get in Tuscan leather. Either way, this is an absolutely brilliant fragrance, one of my favorites of all time, and definitely a religious experience when I smell this. Fragrance number 3, this is Ralph Lauren's Polo. Some people call it Polo Green. And the first time I smelled it, just huge shivers down my spine because I don't know where, but I had definitely smelled it before. And it was all positive, like a fragrance that's taken you back to like your childhood or when you're much younger, but it was all good. Like, sometimes doing that, it can be a nightmare, but this was just like, everything about it was fantastic. It just very, very nostalgic, very, very potent. And it It's just a magnificent fragrance. Now, I find, though, that this bottle, this particular bottle, the new formulation, as the fragrance dries down, so after maybe the first half hour, 45 minutes or so, that tobacco note, it starts to get a little dirty, but it's the beginning of this fragrance I love. So there's 5 aromatic notes, led mainly by pine and oak moss. And then you've got leather, tobacco, and some woods. But my God, the opening of this is one of those bottles where I'll just spray a little bit on my hand. I'll just spray, and it just like immediately, I love it. Fragrance number 4, this is Café Tuberosa from the House of L'Atelier. And despite the French name, this is actually an American house. It's American niche house. It's not super expensive. 100 milliliters of this would be between $100 and $120. But this fragrance, it just blew me away. It's relatively new, and it's very different. So first of all, it's a gourmand. So cafe kind of gives that away. So it's got a lot of coffee in it. It also has a lot of vanilla. But the thing that I like about it most is that patchouli note, because this is patchouli done in a chocolatey way. And then they have the cacao note to add a little bit more chocolatey feel. So this smells more chocolatey than any other fragrance that I've ever tried. But the weird thing about this one is the tuberose note. Now, I don't know if you guys are aware, but tuberose is a very intense white floral, very sharp and indolic. And indolic means fecal, a little animalic. So it's like this very strong, potent tuberose note that takes it in a completely different direction than the gourmand. But, you know, it just works. Fragrance number 5, this is Bvlgari Man in Black. This is a fragrance that's always been one of my favorites. But the weird thing about this is the last video I did, which of this was about 3 or 4 months ago, and I put it on, and I'm like I always liked it, but oh my God, it just kind of blew me away, especially in the open. And then I put it on again this time, and again, like the first 5 to 10 minutes, it was just like, it was a religious experience. So I don't know whether this bottle macerated or matured in a really good way, or whether my nose is just changing slightly or my tastes are changing. I don't know, but this thing is absolutely fantastic. The composition of this is a little strange. It's a sweet and spicy fragrance. There's tonka and benzoin, and there's a spices note. But you also get a lot of vices. So all the bad things that people do, tobacco, leather, rum, all with really good performance. It just comes together so nicely. It is very dark. I'm so annoyed that I did not get more than a 30 milliliter bottle. Such an annoying thing. Fragrance number 6, this is Rifaqaat by Paris Corner. And this is a clone of YSL's Baby Cat. And I'm trying to talk about clones a little bit less because a lot of my regular viewers don't tend to like them. However, there are 4 or 5 clones that are just fantastic, that I have no problems with, and I will continue to talk about all the time. And this is definitely one of them. For starters, I love the presentation here. It's a simple bottle, but it's very elegant, and they've added a very simple, very clean label to go with it. The atomizer is really good. It is much better than a lot of atomizers I get with clones. And then the scent itself is absolutely fantastic. I love that sweet, woody scent that this has here. But the key to this fragrance, I don't think, is the woods or the vanilla. This is saved by the fresh spiciness. And that's the whole purpose of Baby Cat, is to add a very fresh, spicy element to vanilla. And they do it in a couple of ways. So fresh spices with spices, black pepper and saffron. And then you've got elemi and olibanum. Those are fresh resins. So those 4 fresh notes make it a lot fresher, and it just balances out the fragrance perfectly. Really good performance with this clone as well. I get this one to be long lasting as well as just projecting a lot early on. This is one clone that, yeah, I'm going to continue to talk about because I really like it that much. Fragrance number 7, this is Santal 33 by Le Labo. And this fragrance is weird on a number of different levels. This was initially created as a candle and a room spray. They did not intend for this to be worn as a fragrance that you wear on skin. However, one of the two owners of Le Labo, or the two founders, was watching a soccer game in Manhattan. It was the World Cup. The guy in front of him was a Frenchman, and he smelled incredible. And the Le Labo founder said to the Frenchman, "What are you wearing?" The Frenchman was really embarrassed because he goes, "Well, it's a room spray." And then the Frenchman said, "I got it at a boutique down the street. It was the headquarters of Le Labo." The founder then thought, okay, we've got something on our hands here. Went back, tweaked the formula, made it that candle room spray formula, and turned it into a fragrance on skin. And then you have Santal 33. And now it's super expensive, highly regarded. Another weird thing about it, though, is I paid $20 for this 2 milliliter sample. And when I first tried it, I wanted to throw it across the room because that's a lot of money to spend on a 2 milliliter bottle. And I hated it. And I hated it for at least a year. It just smells disgusting, or did. It smelled like pickle juice to me. Took me a year, and I do this with some fragrances. Once I figured out the powderiness, once I started noticing it more, wearing it a little bit more, I like powdery fragrances. Once the sandalwood element came out, I started to enjoy it. This takes sandalwood, a relatively powdery, pleasant wood, and takes it in its darkest, nastiest direction with the use of leather and cedar and a papyrus note, which is a very intense aromatic note, very dry, but very strong. So yeah, and all of that leads to something that is very polarizing, but this one now, when I put it on, it just feels awesome. Fragrance number 8, this is Tahitian Waters by English Laundry. And English Laundry is pretty much a clone house. And this is not exactly a clone, but it is their take on Virgin Island Water by Creed. And I really love coconut. I've mentioned that in a couple of recent videos. And even though this is a very inexpensive fragrance, it's a clone, it's a cheap clone, I just love this so much. I've never bought a Virgin Island Water before. I've tried it, but it's too expensive. But I love putting this on. And what I like about Virgin Island Water and this is that it's wearable. It's coconutty, but it's wearable. Bergamot, lime, orange, brown sugar, and coconut. Very refreshing fragrance. Performance is okay for what it does. It's not too bad. But yeah, that is something that, again, I wear it in really hot weather, and it's fantastic. So anyway, yeah, I'm pretty sure you guys can understand the whole religious experience thing. Fragrances do weird things to our brain. They can really make us feel better. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of us do this. So anyway, thanks for watching.